Some camera brands fade away, but their lenses keep living in the hands of photographers. Contax is one of those names. The cameras are part of history now, but the Zeiss glass still has a reputation that refuses to die. From tiny rangefinder-style lenses to a medium-format portrait legend, these are 5 Contax Zeiss lenses photographers still chase. You are watching Alt Buzz Lenses. Subscribe for lens stories, forgotten glass, and the classics photographers still talk about. At number 5, we have the Carl Zeiss Planar T-Star 50mm f1.7 for Contax Yashica mount. If you have been curious about Contax Zeiss glass, but found the prices on the famous lenses hard to justify, this is the lens the system offers as an answer. It is not the fastest 50mm in the lineup. It does not carry the collector drama of the more talked about pieces. But spend time with it, and you start to understand what made photographers trust this system. It is compact. The focus ring moves with intention, and the rendering carries what Zeiss glass tends to carry: contrast and color that does not feel processed or pushed. It just feels real. The build quality is worth mentioning separately. These lenses were made in Japan under Zeiss license, and the construction reflects that collaboration seriously: metal barrels, smooth, damped focusing, and an overall feel that modern kit lenses simply do not replicate. Picking one up for the first time, the weight and solidity communicate something before you even look through it. The Contax Yashica mount adapts cleanly to most modern mirrorless systems, which is part of why the catalog stayed relevant when other film-era mounts quietly disappeared. The 50mm f1.7 is not the loudest Contax Zeiss lens. It does not have a nickname. What it does is give photographers a genuine taste of the Zeiss experience without asking for legend money. It is the lens that makes the rest of the system make sense. But Contax was not only about black manual focus, SLR lenses. The next lens comes from a completely different Contax system, smaller, sleeker, and still loved by street photographers. At number 4, we have the Carl Zeiss Biogon T-Star 28mm f2.8 for Contax G. The Contax G system had a different personality from the C/YSLR world. It was compact, silver, and rangefinder inspired. The bodies were elegant in a way that felt ahead of their time, and the Biogon 28mm f2.8 fits that personality completely. The Biogon formula was designed to minimize distortion and deliver edge-to-edge sharpness, qualities that matter enormously on a wide-angle lens. Most wide angles compromise on the edges. This one resists that. It renders a scene with a flatness and honesty that 28mm lenses do not always manage. The T-Star coating is doing real work here too. Contax shooters who came from other systems often notice it burst in backlit scenes. Flare is controlled in a way that feels deliberate, and contrast holds through situations where lesser coatings would give up. It is the kind of coating behavior you notice most when you are not expecting it to hold. For street photography, travel, or documentary work, this lens has a following that makes complete sense. It is small enough to feel casual. The image quality makes sure you do not treat it that way. There are some practical notes. The Contax G autofocus system was not the most reliable mechanism ever built. Adapting G lenses to mirrorless bodies can leave autofocus non-functional. So many photographers use them manually, which takes patience on a wide angle with limited focus ring travel. But the results tend to quiet those complaints. The Biogon 28 is the kind of lens that makes the Contax G system feel almost impossible today. Tiny, sharp, and filled with Zeiss character in a package that most modern compacts would not attempt to match optically. And then there is the lens with a nickname strong enough to become part of its legend. At number 3, we have the Carl Zeiss Distagon T-Star 28mm f2, also known as the Hollywood, for Contax Yashica mount. Most lenses do not get nicknames. The ones that do usually earn them through something a specification sheet cannot explain, a quality in the rendering, a way of handling light. The Distagon 28f2 earned its nickname among filmmakers, and the name stuck because the lens kept delivering whatever had earned it in the first place. The Hollywood. It is not just about the f2 aperture. Though that speed is genuinely useful in low light, it is the combination of that aperture, the T-star coating, and the Distagon design working together, producing a wide-angle perspective that feels cinematic rather than clinical. It draws with warmth in the color rendering with more character than many sharp, modern wide angles manage. The Distagon design itself is worth a moment, where the Biogon formula achieves its geometry through a symmetrical optical arrangement. The Distagon is a retro-focus design, built to work with the mirror clearance and SLR body demands. What Zeiss managed was to take the compromises that retro-focus wide angles typically involve and engineer most of them away. The result is a wide angle that handles contrast and color the way the simpler Biogon formula does, despite the added optical complexity underneath. Filmmakers found this lens and did not let it go. It was adapted onto movie cameras. It moved through the hands of directors of photography, looking for a wide angle that could hold its own against dedicated cinema glass without that price tag. It is not cheap today. Collector demand and filmmaker interest have pushed prices to a level that some would say exceeds purely optical justification. Others would argue that the specific rendering, the look that gave it the nickname in the first place, is worth exactly what people are paying. What is hard to argue is that the nickname survived because the lens deserved it. That is rarer than it sounds. If you enjoy lens stories that go beyond specs and explain why photographers still chase old glass, subscribe to Alt Buzz Lenses. This channel is about the lenses, brands, and forgotten systems that still matter today. But if one Contax G lens made photographers believe tiny Zeiss glass could be truly special, it was this one. At number 2, we have the Carl Zeiss Planar T-Star 45mm f2 for Contax G. There is something specific that happens when a lens becomes the reason people justify an entire camera system. Not a lens that benefits from the system, a lens whose quality is so clear that photographers built their entire case for the G mount around it. The Planar 45mm f2 is that lens. On the Contax G body, it looks almost impossibly small. It does not announce itself, but the images tell a different story. The planar formula at 45mm delivers sharpness and contrast that made this lens a benchmark for what small Zeiss glass could actually achieve. Colors come through with a richness the T-star coating contributes to without making the image feel altered. At EF2, the subject separation is more than adequate for portraits, street work, or anything where a flat background is not available. The 45mm focal length is also worth appreciating on its own terms. It sits between the classic 50 and a true wide angle, close enough to natural human perspective to feel comfortable, but with just enough compression to give portraits a slightly more flattering geometry than a wider lens would produce. It is a focal length some photographers dismiss as awkward and others come to regard as the most versatile one they own. The autofocus concerns of the G system apply here too, and a normal focal length demands more precision in manual focus than a wide angle does, worth knowing before you commit. But among photographers who have spent real time with this lens, the reaction is consistent. The Planar 45 f2 reminds you why people chased this system. It looks small, almost harmless, and then the images remind you it was never harmless at all. And at number 1 is the lens that did not just make a camera system famous, it helped define an entire medium format look. At number 1, we have the Carl Zeiss Planar T-Star 80mm f2 for Contax 645. Medium format has always rendered the world differently. The larger film area, the depth of field characteristics, the way light behaves on a bigger negative, these things produce images that are immediately recognizable to anyone who has looked at serious portrait and editorial photography. There is a look. And a significant part of what created that look in the hands of so many portrait and fashion photographers was this lens. On medium format, an 80mm at f2 produces a shallower, more dimensional separation than the same aperture on a full-frame body. The out-of-focus areas are softer, more enveloping. And the planar formula, through Zeiss engineering, delivers this in a way photographers recognized immediately. The bokeh this lens produces became part of its identity. Not just soft, out-of-focus areas, but a specific quality to how the transition between sharp and unsharp happens. Smooth rather than nervous, gradual rather than abrupt. It is the kind of out-of-focus rendering that makes a subject feel placed in the image rather than cut out of it. That distinction, as subtle as it sounds, is what separates portrait lenses photographers remember from ones they forget. Wedding photographers used it, fashion photographers used it, editorial photographers on film used it. It became the lens you would spot in behind-the-scenes photographs of photographers whose work you respected. The Contax 645 body, the 80mm mounted, and no need for an explanation. Finding one in good condition takes patience and a budget that reflects its status. It is collector-grade photographic history that also still performs. Put it in front of a face in good light, and the results carry that specific Zeiss quality, contrast that sits between crisp and warm, colors that feel true rather than corrected, detail rendered with character rather than pure resolution. For many photographers, this lens is not just the best Contax lens, it is the Contax look. Contax is not a modern camera brand. There is no new body on a shelf anywhere. The systems belong to photographic history now, but the lenses are still there, in the bags of film photographers who have no intention of switching, adapted onto mirrorless bodies by shooters who discovered them years after the brand stopped making cameras, in the hands of cinematographers who recognize that what these lenses offer does not have a clean modern equivalent at the same price. Contax may be part of camera history now, but these lenses prove that a brand can disappear from stores and still live on through the images its glass creates. If you enjoy stories about classic lenses, forgotten systems, and the glass photographers still chase, subscribe to Alt Buzz Lenses.